Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is minutes. So can I have a motion on minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 22nd, or excuse me, the March 26th, 2015 meeting as currently constituted.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Are there any comments, corrections, omissions? Not hearing any, then all in favor? All right. Next item is Chairman's report. Very brief report tonight. One thing I'd just like to note that the public library actually tonight is also hosting Bill Littlefield, host of Only a Game on NPR. And to tell you the truth, I'd much rather be there listening to some of his sports poetry. But I'll be able to look forward to that in a few weeks.
Maybe we get out of here fast enough, you make
we might go over there, but I think it'd probably be a little crowded. The other item is that every year at town meeting, we recognize town employees, and usually one or more from the school department, the rest are from other town departments as well. So I discussed with Bob on a potential candidate to suggest, but we want to poll the committee, so rather than speak a name here because we're being, we want it to be sort of a surprise for the individual for it. So if you have any ideas of someone in the school system for us to nominate, just email Bob and I, and we'll work through it. Because I think we can put in more than one for it, so that's fine. And that's all I have for a report. So we will go to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so last Thursday night I attended the international dinner night at MHS, and there were many students dressed in cultural outfits for the countries that their tables represented. Everyone who attended had a great time, and I really just want to thank all the staff and all the students who helped the foreign language teachers plan this event, and it went off really wonderfully. I see Principal Karajanis there too, and he was there. So it was a really wonderful event, especially since we're so focused on global learning. This is a perfect example of it. Also, speaking of Maynard High School, some more good news. We received the NEASC 2-year progress report, and once again, Maynard High School's accreditation has been continued. I also attached all of the official letter so that everyone can see the highlights of what's happening at Maynard High School and things that are going well as the NEASC substantive change policy, which highlights our need to make sure that we adequately fund and operate the Maynard High School. So there are things that could get us in trouble if we don't fund the high school properly. But the good news is we're on a great path, and the high school is doing really great work. So
when
it's
is
nice.
The high school officially ours?
Well,
if you wanted to do something, like how it was, controlled
yeah,
more by the state.
technically, Pete, I think the building committee is still there, and there's a few last things that have to be approved. So I don't know. I mean, technically it's ours. It has been turned over to us, but there are still some processes that have to be approved. There's actually some other celebrations that have to be had. We received our CHIP certification, which is a really wonderful thing for being such an efficient building. So there's still a few more of those sort of things that have to happen. But technically it was turned over to us as a town. Okay, and also in your packets, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Office of Digital Learning sent out a packet that I wanted to share with everyone, because we've been talking about that grant that we were in the queue for. And the nice thing about this is I've highlighted it on the second page. They're saying that money is still, they're still in the pipeline, and they still want to get it to those districts, and they actually highlight that there are 17 school districts that are eligible to receive that $5 million, and we're one of those school districts that they're talking about there. So I just wanted to highlight that. Charles and Gabron and the committee have been working hard. They plan on coming to a future school committee to share with you where they are with the 5-year technology plan. I think they've hit 4 out of the 6 targets that they have to hit. And so I just want to share with you that grant still seems to be in the pipeline. Things are looking good, and that could really help out our technology at Green Meadow and Fowler. Also, we just received a legislative bulletin from MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. That's in your packet. And Pete found a nice article on the Mass Municipal Association, which is what our town officials tend to read. And they highlight that the House Ways and Means Committee has come up with their own recommendations above and beyond the governor's recommendations. And some of those highlights are increasing Chapter 70, although when Pete analyzed it, it really doesn't affect our district. But there's not negatively or positively, so that's good. And then there is in here discussion that they're going to fully fund the kindergarten grant, which is something that we've been worried about because that would require additional reductions. So we can only hope that the House Ways and Means are moving in the right direction, and we don't see any of those additional cuts that we were worried about. But at least this is good information for you to note, for us to feel good about our state legislature. Also on this document, on the second page, there's a save the date for the Day on the Hill. And it's at the State House in Boston. And if anybody's interested, any of the school committee members, I'd suggest that you email Charles Cabron, because he has been very active in state-level politics and education during his lengthy career, and he would love to attend this with any one of the school committee members who could attend. And I know we've always talked about political advocacy at the state level, so if this date works for any of you, feel free to email Charles, and he'd be happy to attend with you. And he knows his way around. He'll get you into some senators' offices. Actually, Colleen knows her way around, too. She can get you into some offices, too. And that's all I have for tonight for the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Next is students' representative report, and I see that they're not here, although I know...
Yeah, nobody's coming in.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I was just going to say, today was the day the band and chorus trip at the high school, which may have impacted both of them.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but I'm assuming that that's where they are. So we'll skip that and go to citizen comment. Any citizens' comments? Okay, moving on. The 2015-2016 transportation. So Bob?
Yeah, Pete and Colleen have attached some historical data for you in your packets as far as transportation fee increases. And we have significantly increased the fees over the last 3 years. And for 10 years, it just stayed flat. So the question is this a year when we should consider increasing the fees? And I think it's open for discussion for the school committee to decide that.
Okay. I do note that based on what Pete also has provided us on the budget, not to skip forward to that, but just to know that the increase that there's an increase of $7,200 for contract.
Correct.
So we're not expecting, if we don't change the fees, we're not expecting that number that we fund by fees to go up anymore. So all that would then be, all that increase would be funded by our own budget. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's the assumption to make at this point, until the registrations start coming in.
Yeah, it's assuming the same level of registration as what you...
Because if you notice what from FY12 to FY14, one of the significant changes was we went from a 3-tier to a 2-tier system. And the reason I just said what I said, until you see the registration coming in, it really has a financial impact on people that have more than 2 kids. In the old system, the change we made causes the 3rd child now to cost $79 more than 2 years ago. So if we had more families with 3, then presumably would bring in more money in fees. Conversely, if we had more families with 1, we wouldn't. But Bill, I think at this point, yeah, what you said is correct.
And that is assuming that everything's staying equal, that increase, if it comes out to the budget, well, right now you're saying for this year, fees are paying for just under, a hair under 1/3 of the program costs.
Right.
But in last year, it was only 31.1%.
Correct.
So if we don't, I'm assuming that if we still maintain the same amount of fee collection with the additional costs, will probably put us at the same sort of ratio fee to budget as we were in FY14.
Right.
I mean, the options, I think, are, if we think we can afford it, is either maintain it this year the same, or maybe just have a nominal increase, say $5 for each category, but it's really, you know, what do the other committee members think?
I think in FY12, what we had started doing was to increase by the amount of the contract increase, so we
Mhm.
weren't necessarily, we were just passing along the percentage increase, so if the
Right.
percentage was 17%, we would just add, I'm making up a number, but we did pass 17% onto the consumer. What was the percentage increase for FY16?
I'll do that in 1 second.
Well, it should only
So
be,
you're-
like, it should only be like about 3% since we're already, the total cost is over $200,000, so.
So one option, like you said, would just be to do like a $5 across the board
It's
Yeah.
about a
increase.
3.2% increase.
3.2%, okay. So another option is to do a 3.2 increase across the board. And can you do the math quickly on what that would mean on the,
Well, it'd be close to, well, for the $260 one, it'd be close to a $10 one.
okay,
$9 or
Alright.
$10.
okay. Okay, so it'd be more like $10
Instead of 5.
instead of 5.
And are we fully maxed out on our ridership? I believe there was a wait list last year.
There
correct?
is,
So we don't have any potential for realizing additional fees because there would be spots available, based, compared to what we offered last year.
right.
Okay.
I think it was we raised it quite a bit that 1 year because we hadn't had
We
any
had it
raises
for
for
10,
years.
for
And we
10
just,
years, and
yeah,
I
we just
mean,
brought it up to
I realized
speed.
that people, you know, that year kind of had some sticker shock
right,
as to what it
right,
was,
yeah,
but,
it did.
you know, we hadn't raised it for 10 years.
And that was sort of
And
when
our
the
cost,
bottom
and
fell
our
out
cost
of it.
had been
Right.
increasing all along,
Yeah,
so that the percentage of what the fees were covering was less and less.
yeah.
So we sort of corrected for that, and now we're maintaining roughly around, you know, from, if you go back to FY12, you know, 27% to this past year, 33%. You know, that's the sort of you know, that's, I think, is a good range to have
Yeah.
as, to help subsidize the busing.
Mhm.
I just can't see how at the last committee meeting, we voted to approve potential cuts to balance our budget for next year, how we can absorb that figure without having to look for something else to trim going forward.
Right.
So I think in some small way, we were almost obligated to pass that 3.2% along to the ridership.
Mhm.
I agree.
Bill, what's your thinking behind the $5 increase?
I just said it, you know, I was just using it as an example, just a straw man.
Oh,
Thing.
okay.
I mean, what you really could do, looking at the fee structure, I mean, you could say for the first number, the 260, we could raise it to 270, and maybe the 215 only goes up to 220, only raise that $5.
Mhm.
And that will then also help lessen the impact for multiple children, you know, or more than 2 children in families.
Yeah, and if you did that, Bob, or Bill, you're coming out at about that 3.5% increase.
So, Pete?
One thing just to keep in mind, I think we talked about it last time. We've raised the fees 3 out of the last 4 years. Granted, the last couple haven't been that much. But eventually you reach a point of diminishing return with the fees. And as we talked about last time, what we've seen in our trend, Colleen pulled numbers for the past couple of years with our free and reduced ridership. It's gone up. And, you know, you can't say exactly why, but one of the reasons could be the more we raise the fees and lose revenue-paying customers, their seats are being taken by free and reduced people.
But
We
it's
don't
a
pay
first
anything.
come, first serve though, too, right?
I'm sorry?
Isn't it a first come, first serve lottery, essentially? No, it wouldn't be a lottery, but
It is, but it's,
I don't with that, I don't understand how you're saying paying customers are being replaced by those.
because more free and reduced, people are coming the first day.
Coming on the first day, okay, so they're sort of doing like the rest of us and showing up at 5 a.m.
Pete, I agree with your concerns, but at the same time, I'm also looking at the amount of money that we've collected on fees for each year has gone up. So it isn't a case where we've actually started losing money because of that. And, I'll grant you yet. The other aspect of it is that we still have a wait list for it. So it's the kind of thing where we haven't priced it out to the point where people are just saying, the heck with the bus. Not paying that for it. And I mean, if granted, if you have a large family, it might be better to, transport the kids to school yourself, if it becomes a cost. But it's a kind of thing where, in a sense of fairness, just because somebody has a large family doesn't mean you get, things cheaper for, admissions to things. For it. I mean, it's part of the cost of having a large family. I mean, trying to get back on track here. I put forward an idea of the 270 and 220 for the fee structure. Are there any other suggestions or questions, or maybe want to address Pete's concerns a little more? Well then, can somebody make a motion?
So do you want it set, do you want the fees set, or do you want to leave the fee to cover the 7,200? Do you know what I mean? Like, do we want to do the math, or do we want Pete to do the math and just empower him to do that? I'm fine either way.
Usually what we do is set the fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
I
that we
just want
can't
to
do
make
it
the right motion.
differently,
I
but
don't
that's
think
been
they care.
historically what we've done.
Okay, so I move to raise the FY16 bus fee structure to $270 for the first rider and $220 for every rider thereafter in the family.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right. Next, anything else on?
Nope, that's all we had on that
So
one.
Colleen, when will bus registration be? Do you have it planned?
I'm gonna keep it at May 4th.
May 4th? Okay.
Yep. So
All
we'll
right.
start publishing it tomorrow.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the superintendent's evaluation request. It's really, it's part of what we need to do, and we actually sort of should be thinking of when we start doing that for you, Bob. Basically, when will you provide us the materials for your evaluation, and when we'll actually have the meeting that we report on your evaluation. The other thing that I'd also like to mention, that because of the fact that this year Dawn is serving as an appointed member, and her term sort of expires when the town election is held. So the person who is elected to fill her position comes on board immediately. It's not that we don't want that individual's input for Bob's evaluation, but the fact that they'll be here for a very short time and might not be able to have a full, what's the word, I kind of want the, essentially a full sense of all the work that he has done over the year. I'd like to also include that we include Dawn's input in that, even though when we're doing it, she won't currently be a school committee member, but we will collect input from her.
Yeah.
And is the rest of the committee okay with
I
that?
think that makes terrific sense.
And Dawn, you're okay with that, right?
Sure, more work is great.
Okay. All right. So Bob, when are you thinking?
So usually, the way we've done it is usually late June or July, usually late June or early
Okay.
July. I will give you the document that we started working on and did our mid-year evaluation off of, which has the benchmarks
Yeah.
and the achievements up to the mid-year, and then I'll add in what's happened for the rest of the
Okay.
year. And then usually the school committee as a whole looks at that and then writes their comments in in the evaluation tool and sends them to you, Bill, and usually
Yeah.
either the last meeting in July or
Well, I'm not
I mean,
here.
June.
In June.
the last meeting in June, or the second to last meeting, first meeting in June, usually that's when we
Yeah.
go over it. So I think usually the first meeting in June, we go over it, just in case,
Yeah. Well, we only have one meeting scheduled in June.
so that is the
So yeah, and so I'm thinking that we should set for May 28th.
Okay,
To basically have all the input from you and have that on the agenda so that we can discuss
Yeah.
that feedback, and then the rest of the committee can forward me their comments or reviews. I can
Collate it.
collate it so that on the June 11th meeting, we can have that for you.
Excellent,
Um,
okay. And so that's, you know, we can email Dawn the packets and the information, she can email back to you.
Yeah.
You can collate that with it.
Okay. All right, so that should be able to handle that. Next up is the FY16 budget.
Yeah, so under this item, I think we have three things to talk about. One is the line item budget for fiscal year 16. The other one is preparations for the budget hearing coming up on April 30th, which is our next school committee meeting, but we always have a budget hearing before that. And then the town meeting presentation, and then if there's a need to review the tally sheet, we can do that as well. So under the line item budget, I just would like to share with the school committee, we put it up online as people have requested. You have this document, and we put it up online. But I would like to point out that this is just an estimated budget at this point, and that as an education department, we are required by law to make funding decisions based on student needs. And as a result of that, by law, the school department and the school committee are allowed to transfer funding from line to line. And that's a little different than the way the other departments in the town work. Once they have a line, it's it. But because we have such flexible costs, such unpredictable costs, there's laws that say that that's the way the school committee should act. So one of the nice things is that we met with the finance committee, the budget subcommittee and I, and we reviewed this, and they fully understood that this, you know, these aren't the exact numbers. This is a living document. And what they recommended is that the school committee as a whole review this maybe on a quarterly basis as we go through the next year so we can see the changes that are made. So that's exactly what we did. We figured we'd put this together, but part of the concern is that some people might look at one specific line item and say, well, that's not exactly right. And we're agreeing, that's not exactly right. That's going to change because this is a living document. So just wanted to share that with everybody. If anybody has any questions based on what they've seen on the line item, we're more than welcome to talk about it now. And then we can go on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Or do you want me to cover all the topics?
I actually just want to clarify something.
Yep.
During the course of the year, I mean, within the line items that Pete has provided here, you can move things there, but I do believe that the four line items that are reported on the town budget, the athletics, transportation, salaries, and expense, that moving from one of those to another one there, we do have to vote and approve on.
That's correct.
So I just want to make clear that so people
correct.
understand that in the
It's a
minutia,
process.
within each of the ones that we report to town, Pete can move things or whatever, you know,
Right. If
obviously.
one team needs more than
Yeah.
another team, then you can move things from one sport budget
Yeah,
to another.
but on the larger ones for town that we do vote on approving. And a lot of times in years past, we've had where there's been, I don't know, maybe more expense and we didn't use up all the salary or whatever, the other ones we voted to move things at the end of the year to make sure everything balances.
And you will be seeing that in one of the main meetings.
Okay,
I'll have a memo like that.
okay.
Do you want me to continue on?
Yeah,
Or do we want to have
continue.
discussion on that first? Want me to continue on?
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay, so the other piece that the school committee really should discuss as a whole is the preparations of our, you know, we did a presentation earlier in the year, but we always do a budget hearing, which is coming up April 30th. And the question is, I know, Bill, you present this at town meeting as well. We might want to have a philosophical discussion about what is the message we want to send. It might be a little different now because even though this was done, we hadn't figured out what our reductions were at this point, so there might be a slightly different message that you may want to philosophically discuss here, and then I think through email, the budget subcommittee can make their recommendations to Bill as far as how to change these slides as to what the message should be to, you know, at the next two meetings that we would be presenting this document. So that's a philosophical discussion that we should probably have. And then the last thing is any other questions on the tally sheet. If there's any other questions, we could talk about that. But I think those other first two are kind of important. The line item budget and the philosophical discussion on the budget presentations are pretty important that the school committee really needs to talk as a whole about it.
Actually, another question though, from what our number is, that is not reflecting any further reduction for the possible funding of a capital plan on the town side?
Yes,
That's
that,
correct.
So,
correct.
so are
No.
do we know that if the town is not,
I can give you an update on that.
okay,
So I saw the breakdown of the free cash and where they want to allocate it, and I won't remember it, it was just in their
Okay.
agenda notes. And at the end of the day, they want to spend a lot in DPW, and I won't go into the details. And I called because I found it unusual so there's a number left over, about $156,000 in free cash. And I just assumed that would get allocated to this new capital fund, because they've made the presentation and things like that, but they've instead chosen to put it towards general stabilization, which I won't bore everyone
Okay.
with, but it's basically sort of a rainy day fund, but we've
Yeah.
never tapped it. So anyway, they're not even funding it from free cash, so I don't anticipate they
so
will
it
become
looks
just
like
at
they're
this
not
point.
necessarily doing it this
Right.
year?
So
Okay.
our number that we have at this point, they approved at their last meeting, but we just didn't know they were having a meeting, is the 1.615 number that we heard in February, plus they found a way to fund the technology grant that we were looking for
Oh, great.
out of the excess overlay, so anyway, at the end of the day, I don't think we're getting a start this year to be capital plan, because they have money that they could put towards it, I didn't see it. So,
Okay,
yeah, so
All
they
right.
must have changed directions.
all right, so that's good to know, so at least we know that this is the number that we're working here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just leave it open, let's work on the line item first. I mean, I'm just kind of going through it to try to see if there's anything, but I mean, I don't really have any questions on it. Do any other members?
No, I mean, I did see something that jumped out at me is just the projected utility increases. And I was gonna save it for my members' comments towards the end of the meeting, but the time might be now. I am aware of the fact that the town has a new facilities manager that has just come on board. And with the last facilities manager, I was trying to start the dialogue of getting some solar panels put on the school buildings and possibly on all the town buildings, because the utility companies are doing it for free right now, and that program still continues. The high school that I teach at in Lexington, we have over something in the neighborhood of 2,000 solar panels just on the roof of our high school buildings, and the energy savings are absolutely phenomenal. And with the permission of the committee, I'd like to reach out to the facilities director, or perhaps Bob, in your position, you could reach out, and I'd like to start that conversation again. You know, we're trying to turn dimes into 3 nickels right now, and that's just not a reality anymore. So any potential savings that can be realized with someone else's money, I think, is a really interesting thing to look into.
So,
Yeah, we should definitely push that forward.
just to let you know too, he actually, we set a date to visit some of the schools tomorrow, so he's gonna be coming with me tomorrow afternoon to visit some of the schools. At that time, I can talk to him.
Carry your pocket compass. Anything that's south facing, we can put a solar panel on.
Okay, I got it right in here. You can get it, it's an app, my compass. So, but I will mention it to him, and then maybe we can remind him with some emails, because I know you've tried to do that in the past, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited about our new facilities manager. I'm looking forward to working with him, and he is already interested in coming and visiting the principals in the schools over the next couple of days, so that's
Awesome.
good.
Terrific.
Any other further questions about the line item?
So we're talking about town meeting presentation. Do you want to start with sort of how you plan to approach it? That might be the best way to
Yeah,
kick off.
what I'm thinking of is sort of use what we presented at the townwide budget hearing as sort of the starting point, but essentially get into, it's essentially when we're talking about the numbers, basically, okay, we know the number, this is the budget, and to say is, and show the comparison of, well, this was what we had for level service, this is what the budget is, this is what we had to cut out of the budget, to explain to them what we are giving up in order to meet the budget. Now, some people can view it as, oh, increased efficiencies, whatnot. I'm thinking more of a, okay, we're creating holes. That example is that if, for example, combining the athletic director and assistant principal at the high school, okay, it's more efficient, but you're also now having one less body in case that if you have an absence of someone for it, that you don't have someone to fall back on immediately, or things being stretched too thin for it. So these are just concerns that when you start having people wearing multiple hats, it gets to a point of, you know, they might be great in one position, they might be great in the other, but when they're trying to do two, they might not be so great.
I
And
think
that's the thing, is you're just stretching people too thin.
Well, I think the key is to highlight that although we can wouldn't say they're efficiencies, I would just highlight that each one has an impact.
Yeah.
And if you could give sort of a one bullet of what we see the impact is.
Yeah.
And an easy one to really look at is obviously like increased class size. You
Yeah.
know, there's things that, you know, if we don't have a good bullet point, you know, any of our educators can
Yeah,
help us.
and I mean, I was looking through some of the things that we were saying with it, and like, for example, the special ed teacher, eliminate the one full-time equivalent there, and it increased the clustering for special education students, or what I would like to find out from Joe's, like, okay, what are we talking about cluster? Like, we're talking about going from 4 students to 7 students, or what exactly the numbers are for things like that,
I mean,
and how that could impact.
Do we want to get into that level of minutia, though? If we're talking to people that might not be as familiar with the situation as we are, or our audience is?
I think you need to provide something to sort of hold on to.
Yeah.
I mean, what I hope to do is maybe we can gather up this information initially. I can send it out early before the hearing so that you can all
Great.
make comments on. And if you think I'm going too much in detail, and the other thing is we have the budget hearing to
Yeah.
sign up and sort of do it, essentially in that presentation, sort of doing a dry run for the town meeting as well.
I think a thread that I would like to see grabbed onto is just this idea of we've reversed trends that were common in the district for a really long time. And we're seeing people staying in the district longer. And more importantly, we're seeing an increase in the people that are choicing in to take advantage of our programs. And I think the hard reality that we need to face as a school system is that eventually, if we keep pulling things off the bone, there won't be a bone left to draw
Yeah.
people in here anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can also include some of the enrollment data. And I realize that what I have as a full enrollment presentation is very dry and whatever, but I think I can tailor it down so that we focus on, you know, maybe just take a quick glance of, here it is. Red is bad, the kids are leaving. Yellow, okay, they're leaving but not as much. Green is good, they're staying or we're increasing. And then move into looking at what the past 3 years have been, where it's essentially almost all green across the board.
Can I build on what you said, just, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Justin, but, you know, we just had the Spanish immersion lottery, and Principal Dankner said she wanted to share with me, she's gonna put together a bunch of emails, because that is such a popular program that she has people, did you say emailing from across the country?
Well, from around here.
Oh, okay, around the year. I always tend to know.
Small difference. Small difference, Bob.
I thought that we were,
Just to
you know,
keep
it was
it
national. Around the state.
Isn't New England the center of the universe anyway?
Wait a second. You know the New Yorker's view of the world? It's like, okay, Bostonian's view of the world, okay.
But still, she's getting, you know, we have people moving into town just for some of our special
Yeah.
programs like that, and that's a good point to make, Justin.
Yeah, and,
You know, we are developing a great
Yeah.
school system.
and Bill, I'm totally on board with pulling some numbers from your enrollment presentation, and I wonder if we could collectively put our heads together and pull 2 or 3 like really thoughtful but powerful data points.
Okay.
Again, I think the key is just sort of get in and get out, while being, you know, overly transparent and blunt with some of our messages, because I think that there is a tendency to get bogged down, and I'd rather have people walk away with general themes than like the nitty-gritty details.
Okay.
So I don't know what that looks like, and I think
Yeah.
we take that conversation offline maybe, but
I'm just concerned with the ones who are probably our worst critics could be swayed with the nitty gritty,
okay.
where people who are supportive of the schools anyway, they might not, yeah, you're right, they might not want to or need to hear the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm just thinking, well, who's the audience that we're trying to sway?
I think the default is always, you've been doing this a heck of a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
So you sort of know what the general trends are in town so much better than I do. I'm just throwing these out here as conversation points because
Well, I'm at a disadvantage because I'm not at the Little League field or the soccer field anymore,
Yeah.
listening to what other people were saying. And in fact, they never really talked to me anyway because I was coaching. I talked to my wife, and then I would hear later.
Some quick things that might help you shape your presentation, and I think they're things that speak to all different types of people, is just how we've improved the budgeting process. I think each year it gets a little bit better, a little more transparent. The fact that we have the line item budget online will very much speak to lots of people because they think there's mysterious magical data in there. So now that they can click on it, I think that's great, and we should be doing things like that.
if we had mystery and magic, we should have a balanced budget.
Right? So I would
Just
touch
saying.
on the process, but not in a dry, boring way, but just sort of an exciting, you know, as we move forward. And, you know, this, of course, depending on what you folks think, is I would like to just sort of mention the increased cost centers on a large scale basis, because I think that each year we're seeing certain cost centers increasing, and I don't think that's going away. And I would just like the general populace to understand that it's not gonna get cheaper to educate the children. It's going to, we can make a few things here and there, and we can speak to the impact of cuts, but I think people should understand that it's expensive to educate children, and next year, we're gonna be saying the same thing. So I'm not really describing it well, but I guess we're making it work this year, but we're, just to give, I guess, folks an idea that, this cost center jumps up, $500,000 in 1 year, or whatever,
Yeah.
like you have a lot more of the more recent history than I certainly do, but just something to get them thinking about education and the cost of education and the value of education.
The other aspect would be is since we don't know what the state budget's going to be, or whether or not we're going to get more Chapter 70 money, or if it's going to cut or whatever. But if we are going to get more money in, then maybe what Town Hall is anticipating, there's a case to make also for fall town meeting to say, hey, if we get anything, we can use it, to help, whether it's to reinstall some program here that we're cutting, or being
Math paraprofessionals.
well, that could be, or maybe rehire the special ed teacher so that we can go back, whatever it is, it's the kind of thing.
Well, and I think the key there is reminding the audience and local that if the governor is actually seeing a need to increase education, that we at the local level should be appreciative of that and see what that money is intended for. So, in case there becomes any questions, so if they're focused on education and increasing the funding, well, let's, because most people just aren't aware of these things. They're not as politically nerdy as we are.
Go ahead, you've been waiting patiently.
Oh, that's okay. I think the math paraprofessionals are really critical, and I would like us to hit that point as something that we could do extra with any additional funds. I know one of the things I hear from a lot of parents is concern about where we stand with math education. We've invested in early literacy a lot more, and I think there's some good reasons for that, and that was certainly a good choice to make. And I think investing in the early math literacy is a good place to start, because I have some concerns that we lose people who have who have families who have children who have a real aptitude for math, because I feel that those needs aren't being met. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I was going to say is I'm just wondering about highlighting some of the revenue from the international exchange students. I think that says two things. One, we're proactively seeking ways in which we can increase revenue. We don't have that much to sell, really, but what we can sell, we will sell. But also, I think the fact that we had so many students come really speaks to the high-quality education that we have and the improvements that we've made, and we should be really proud of the interest and the good experiences the students have had, and we should work to retain that, because we've got possibly some financial benefit there.
Similar theme, administrators and teachers from other districts choose to live in this town and send their children to our schools. So I think that's very indicative that we're on the right track to something really special here.
Yeah, I think it's our job as a school committee to, I think a lot of people think that it's the town versus the school, and you've got, money going in this direction and money going in this direction. I think it's part of our job to make them understand that as the schools increase and the schools are doing better and people are understanding that, that's not only going to increase what we're doing as a school, but also as a town and a community, because as the schools go, so does the property values and all these other things that are going to have a larger impact on the town side. So if we can somehow bridge that void between, it's not the schools and the town, it's the schools is something that you invest in to help enhance the overall town.
It's the whole community.
And that's where what Justin was speaking to, the fact that we've decreased the out-of-district people, and the fact that people are choicing it because of the programs and everything that we offer in this district. Obviously, we want to enhance that and keep building upon that, as opposed to taking things away, because we don't want that trend to reverse, because it obviously takes a long time, as you've seen, to get the trend going in the positive direction. So if we can somehow press upon people and get them to understand that it's not the school versus the town, but when you invest in the school, you make an investment in the entire town, and that benefits everybody.
Oh man, that's elegant. I
You like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so I have my work cut out for me.
You just put that all into like just 5 slides.
Sharpen up the stylus and get to work. So.
Well, I'm going down to Pennsylvania this weekend to see my mom,
Oh,
so,
nice.
Right on.
so, I mean, she turns in at 8 o'clock, so I'll have plenty of time in the evening to kind of work on this, so, anyway. Yeah, so I'll try to get something out to you so that you can kind of take a quick glance at it, sometime next week,
Sounds like
or
fun.
probably mid next week, and, everybody's gonna be around?
Yeah.
Okay, no one's, because of school vacation, no one's skipping out, okay.
No, my exchange daughter's family's coming in from Norway.
Oh,
Oh,
great.
wow.
So they'll be with us for a couple of days here in this area, and then they're going to New York City for a few days. So
Very nice.
yeah, I'll definitely be around, and I may be looking to get away and just
And
maybe
your
do
house is
something mundane
available, it
like look at a
seems.
PowerPoint. Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is there anything else we need to cover on budget, Bob?
I think that's it.
Or is there any comments from anybody on budget? Okay, thank you. Then moving on, next up, policies, second reading. We do have a new updated bullying and prevention and intervention policy, except that it's not just a edit of the old one, it is a complete overhaul. Colleen has got a new model policy in it.
Nice,
So because it is totally new, we'll just almost treat this as a first read and we'll wait on it.
Okay.
We still haven't heard back from the school committee bylaws, and actually, since Chuck is here, Chuck, one of the policies that we have on the table is concerning the high school academic requirements and academic expectations. I believe that was forwarded to you, because one of the things that's lacking in that policy is any comment about 8th graders.
So we got.
So I just was wondering, and you know that that would be also something that you may want to interact with the school council on as well, but we're just hoping to try to get that updated, looked at and back to us, you know, as soon as you can, because we're like trying to get through a lot of the older ones, updated by the end of this fiscal year. Okay. So we're tabling these policies. Hopefully we'll be able to vote on the bullying prevention at next meeting, and hopefully we'll get some feedback back from Andy
Yeah.
on the bylaws as well.
I've been keeping him busy on other things
Okay.
that were pressing matters, so
Okay.
some operational stuff that just he needed to help us with.
All right. So we again return to citizens' comments. Okay. Next up, members' comments and questions. Bob, I have a few just to really start off with. Since we were discussing about your schedule for evaluation,
Yep.
we also need to look at having the school councils in for the school improvement plans. And I guess the question would be, do we do that? We probably want to do that later rather than sooner, so I'm looking at either, again, on May 28th, or we wait until June
So, you know, I'm glad you
11th.
brought that up. One of the concerns we had from a district level is that we were wondering if we shouldn't do that when the whole new school committee is on, because then they wouldn't have had a chance to prepare for the upcoming year. And other school districts, Charles LeBron said in his school district, they actually did it like during the summer or the first September meeting to have
Okay.
those plans. So it might be nice for the new, because we're gonna have such change. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
it might be nice for them to have input on the goals, and I know a lot of them have some real interest in curricular issues, so.
It makes a certain amount of sense too, because then it gives our buildings and our staff the full calendar year, so to speak, to make as much progress as possible before reporting out, so.
Okay.
We had talked about it as a team, and I meant to bring it on, so Bill, as always, thanks for thinking of
Okay.
it, that's good.
No, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I just, usually we just have, in the past,
Yeah,
have done it
yeah,
by
absolutely.
the end of the year to look forward there,
Processes.
but if the rest of the committee wants to just postpone it until maybe have it on your August meeting or your first September meeting.
It might be a nice icebreaker for our new committee members as a way of like just sort of building some background knowledge and looking at trends and so forth, so. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Other
No.
problems?
Makes sense.
Okay,
Sounds good.
okay, I'm fine with that. The only other question I have is about food service.
Yes.
Are we making any progress or decisions about how we're gonna move forward since Bob is
Yes.
retiring?
We have, the budget subcommittee has looked at, the last time we investigated this, we actually looked at Hudson, our neighbor, had gone through this. And Amy knows, because it was very important to her, they really wanted to improve food quality and not just look at saving money. And so we looked at the RFP that they produced, and we actually asked Andy to review it to make it Maynard specific, and then Bob Kinch helped us. Bob Kinch helped us get all the data, because you have to provide all the numbers, how many students are currently in the program. They have to analyze that in order to decide whether they want to bid on the job. So we're at a point where we actually have an RFP. The budget subcommittee is hopefully going to meet in a week or so, and we would like to put that RFP out there. And we had discussed the last time about having several options. So one option would be a full privatization, but another option would be privatizing the management, and then because we have a manager who's leaving, so that's through attrition, and then as people who are currently staff members leave, then they would backfill those positions. So I think we're kind of trying to look at it so that we can get a couple of different options for the school community way. So the budget subcommittee is going to meet, and we would like to post it because I think you know we've got to do something quickly if we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So Colleen would need to put it on the May 7th. You have to post it in the newspaper like 2 times. So we were going to review it one more time, and I'm glad you brought it again, Bill. Thanks for bringing it up. So that we can move forward with it. If everybody's okay with the budget subcommittee moving forward, at least just putting out the RFP. You could say no when we bring it back to the full school committee if you don't agree with what we get, but at least go out with the RFP. We'd like the authority to do that. And I think we had one more tweak that Andy looked at, and I wanted to share that with the budget subcommittee.
So in that case, is it realistic to get it on the agenda for the next meeting so that we can then approve the release of the RFP, or?
Well, I think releasing the RFP, you don't have to accept anything. So if you could approve that tonight, or just, if the budget subcommittee does it, then we could report more specifics to you at the April 30th meeting.
Okay, just being careful though, can we approve anything that's not listed on the agenda?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, you can't approve it, but I think the budget,
I mean, I
posting
think-
it
Can
is
you
not,
empower the budget subcommittee to approve it?
well,
I don't particularly care, we can wait.
Think
If it's urgent.
I think you should take a cue from Admiral Grace Hopper, ask forgiveness rather than permission. Go ahead and do it and bring it back to the next meeting, and we can vote and say, yes, if you actually haven't done
Yeah.
it by that point, we can then vote on it then.
yeah.
But if you
I
need,
think
but if
there's
you need
some
to
time.
get
It's
it,
a window, and the budget subcommittee wanted to look at it one more time.
yeah, I mean, our next meeting is
Yeah,
the
Something
30th.
yeah.
So, when were you thinking of releasing the RFP? You were saying May.
Colleen said we were looking at, in order to keep a timeline so that we could actually have somebody actually get approved, we'd have to post it in the newspaper twice. That's part of the RFP process. And I think Colleen
I have it slotted for the 7th and the 14th.
may.
Oh, okay, we can have it on the next meeting then.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Because we'll have it then, so we can approve it there. So, but I would just say, prepare everything you need for it and bring it, put it on the agenda for next meeting, and we can approve it then, and, we'll be good to go to see what comes in
Okay.
from it.
And I just think part of the problem with posting even for May 7th is that, Colleen, sometimes you were concerned, like we could ask to post it before the meeting, but then get approval at the meeting. But that way, we might have to ask earlier because getting things advertised is a little difficult, right, Colleen? When would you suggest that you contact the newspapers?
Yeah, I had, the deadline for legal notices is the Friday prior. So I need more time we just move it out a week. We can
So-
do 14th and 21st if you want. Then it's pushing it out.
Yeah, the problem is we need to get something in place.
If we're meeting April 30th, that Friday before would be May 1. Is that still within the realm of possibility?
No, I'm talking about this, for it to be in the Beacon on the 7th and 14th. Yeah, that's not enough time.
So I think the budget subcommittee could,
Actually, yeah.
It sounds like it would
I can
be.
get it in, yeah.
Doesn't
Okay.
have to go in the
The
Beacon.
thing
It can
is,
go in the
it's
Metro
the
West
space
Daily.
available.
Okay.
Okay.
well, we'll work on it. As a budget subcommittee, we'll review it. If we have to post it and then the school committee approves afterwards, I think in theory, the school committee has known about this for several years and wants us to at least pursue it. And we can always say, no, we don't want to at the last minute. But I think we need to pursue it.
Cool.
Okay? Thank you for bringing it up, though, Bill.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Any other comments, questions?
Amy?
No.
I know I had the privilege of attending the Green Meadow Open House last night, so Principal Degner, thank you to you and your staff. I had a great time. I'm really pleased with the education my daughter's getting. She's first grade Spanish immersion. Yesterday I was following the Twitter live feed from the parents that were in attendance at the Spanish Immersion Lottery for kindergarten next year. My child was lucky enough to get his name drawn again, so that'll be 2 in our family in Spanish immersion. So terribly excited, and really good things are happening in Green Meadow. So it was nice to celebrate it last night.
Yeah, I would just echo the same thing as Justin. Thanks again. That was my first experience with the open house as my son's in kindergarten, and it was great. He didn't want to leave. He loves going to school, so that's obviously a testament to everything that you guys do there. So thank you.
I was there as well, so they took my comment tonight. It was a great time. We really liked it. We don't stay out late, so that was staying out late worthy. We're usually met by 6:15, so.
I mean, there was just great energy. The building looked good. People seemed genuinely excited. It was a good event. So.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. Just a couple quick things. April 29th, there's going to be a debate for the school committee candidates, 7 o'clock at Town Hall. And there's one contested race, and then anyone who's in an uncontested race gets to speak for 1 minute. So I'm pleased to be uncontested, because I don't like to talk that much. What else? I had one more thing. The Spanish immersion 3rd grade teacher, is all of that in process, the thoughts behind the hiring? I just had a few parents ask me yesterday.
I actually emailed one parent back, and at our last meeting, one parent really suggested, we know it's not an easy thing to start a Spanish immersion program, to post it even though we haven't really gotten at that point, we really didn't have our budget full. We didn't know what our budget number was. And so what we talked about was doing a tentative posting. And due to contractual obligations, we always post internally first. So I explained to that parent, it's already been internally posted. And then the next step is after, I think, 5 days, Colleen, then we post it externally on School Spring, and we'll have a full-fledged search. And the good news is now that we know what our number is, assuming town meeting goes well, then it's not an issue, and we will, we'll be 1 step ahead in our search for a Spanish immersion teacher. So we're already on the ball with that, and we already have done our internal posting.
Awesome.
Okay. If there's no more members' comments or questions, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.